What's up, guys, and welcome again to Pegasus Vapor Academy. Today we're going to be talking about the Sigelei 100-watt box mod. Now, I know you've already seen a couple of reviews on this item, but I promise you this one's going to be completely different and not what you've seen before. So let's dive down and not waste any time and open this thing up and take a look at it. All right, so here we go with the 100-watt box over here. Inside there is these manuals over here, a couple of cards, and then some screws and a screwdriver over here. Okay, not very important. What I really want to show you guys is what I have rigged up for you today, which is a couple of atomizers, a meter, and the box mod itself. Let's talk about the box mod itself first. Okay, a very sleek design. I like it very much. Okay, it's very smooth. The material that they use, okay, the button clicky, very nice. Okay, there's nothing but nice things to say about it in person. When you see this thing in person, I mean, you know, the magnetic door, okay, just fits seamlessly. Everything is no problem whatsoever. Okay. The 510 adjustable copper connection, you just put a flathead screwdriver in here, twist to raise and lower it. Everything that you could think of, it's all set and done over here. So at a glance, playing with it, very solid, very heavy. I like it. I like it a lot. Okay, let's get into the technical aspects of these things. Okay, so first, I mean, you know, without questioning, like, you know, do I have the right batteries in here? I'm running a set of Vamped, okay? And Vamped is, you know, advertised these days as, like, you know, the vaping battery. We'll see about that in another episode, okay? But for now, let's just assume that, you know, I have the top batteries in here running and it's all going to be no problem. So, just like all other devices over here, okay, it's going to be, you know, it's a 100-watt item, and you know, you scroll up and then you scroll down on the power over here. What I like about this thing, okay, is that once we get into the higher wattages, it stops going up by 0.1 increments, and then it just starts, you know, going up by each watt instead of just like 0.1. You see what I'm saying? Okay, so it's not that painful to go from, you know, low wattage all the way to high wattage over here, right? So biggest issue with this thing, right? Now, what is the issue of this? The issue is that if we go back to the manual over here, okay, I want to show you guys this real quick, is that what they say the battery voltage operating range, all right, from 6.4 to 8.4 over here. Right? And then basically, you know, what we really want to know is what the voltage output is going to be, because once we start dealing with like these high wattages without high voltages to complement it at the same time, you know, high wattages is kind of like just using regulated like unregulated mech mods. So what happens over here? Okay, what happens is that, like, when we crank this thing up all the way, okay, let's say we just went ahead and put on different atomizers over here. Now over here I have set up 4 different atomizers for you guys for the sake of testing. All right, now over here is something really low. Okay, this is a 0.5, this is a 0.78, and then I have a 0.1. I'm sorry, I have a 1 ohm over here. Okay, so what we're going to do is that, like, we're just going to take a simple inline meter. Now, these days, these devices, they're no longer pulse width modulation. So inline meters are actually able to take the measurement of the voltage that's going through the device. So I'm just going to go ahead and screw this on. Okay. Now we have our voltage meter on it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to start with something very low over here. This is a 0.5 that I have built inside of a Veritas. Okay, and then I'm just going to go ahead and simply tap on this thing, and it's going to read at 0.6 ohms. Okay, keep in mind that many times, you know, these regulated box mods, they usually always read something slightly higher than it actually is. So having a 0.4 will probably say 0.5, having a 0.5 will probably say 0.6. Okay, so it's not always off by that 0.1 as it scales up as well. So if you have like a 1.4 built in, it could read as like a 1.6. Okay, so what are we going to do? What we're going to do right now is that it's reading 10 watts at 2.4 volts right now. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to crank this guy up. So let's go up. Okay, as we're going higher and higher over here, okay, maybe around like 7.3. Let's bring this down just a little bit. Okay, I want to show you what's promised first. Let's say we're going to fire this thing at around like 5 volts. Okay, so when I hold the button down over here, I'm getting 4.76. So that makes sense right now because 5 volts, 4.76 under load. So it's, you know, it's off by that 0.24, 0.25, something like that. You know what I mean? Over here, 0.2, 0.21, right? That makes sense. Okay, so what we're going to do now is that we're going to crank it up even further. Okay, because what happened is that I was watching a couple of other reviews, and the issue was that although you bring this thing up 100 watts all the way, right, it could read like up to like 7.8, even as high as like 8.4, 8.5, something like that. But the problem is that like you don't actually get those numbers. Okay, so right now we have it at the 7.8. So 7.8 right now under load, we should be hitting somewhere around like maybe the 7.5 area, or maybe like the 7.4 area, something like that. So when I fire this, it's actually only giving me 6.4. You see what I'm saying? So I have to lower this thing down to maybe around like the 6.4, and then when I fire it again, 6.2. So basically what's going on? What's going on is that maybe around like the 6.8 over here, 74 watts. You see what I'm saying? So under load, 6.8, giving me around like 6.3, maybe about a little bit lower than that, 6.5 perhaps, you know what I mean, around 66 watts. That's what it's realistically maxing out at that 0.5 load. Okay, so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go ahead and remove this atomizer. Okay, I'm sure it's pretty hot right now, so let me pause the video and get a glove real quick. I have my glove over here, and I'm just going to go ahead and remove the 0.5, right? And then basically what I'm going to do is that I'm going to do the same thing and then put on another atomizer over here. Now some of the atomizers I didn't wick, and some of them I did. The ones that I didn't wick is because I wanted the heat to go up all the way as high as it can, you know, without restricting it with wicking it. And some of them I had to wick because if I don't wick it, it's going to get too hot and warp the coil. So on smaller coils, we'd absolutely have to wick it, or it's going to be too hot. So over here on our settings, okay, at a 0.8 ohm, 66 watts, 7.6. All right. So when we fire over here, what are we really getting? 6.7. So higher than what the 0.5 is. Okay, so about 6.7, but now if we decide to like try to crank it up a little more, like how far can we go? 6.7, 6.77, 6.75, something like that. Okay, let me go ahead and remove this one. Now I'm just going to go ahead and put on the 1 ohm. Okay, this one is exactly 1 ohm. I'm going to tap it once, so it's like I said before, okay, 1 ohm, 1.2. So it's just off by that little bit, right? Okay, so I'm going to have this thing set at a little bit lower to begin with to make it fair. Okay, like 6.3. If it's 6.3, then that means that this thing under load should be firing at like maybe 6.2, 6.1. Right, 6.12. That's about right. Okay, so let's crank this up, see how far we can go. If we were trying to put like 8.1 volts into here, it should be saying like 7.9 or something, but instead it says 6.9. Okay, so 6.9, basically this thing is probably firing realistically at 7.1 without the load, and then under load 6.9. So I'm going to go ahead and then remove this one off of the inline meter as well. Now, what we're going to talk about is that in other reviews, okay, I've seen a couple of technical ones, is that some people have said that this thing can maximum fire up to 7.7 volts, while other reviewers have said this thing does not go anywhere past 7 volts. So far, I have shown you nothing past 7 volts. Right? And some people are saying 7 volts max. So what I want to do is that I'm going to take this coil that I built. This one is actually a 2.3 ohm, right? And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to tap this once so that, like, you can see 2.6. Okay, real world numbers, this is actually a 2.3. And then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to leave this at the 50 watts over here, 8.5 volts, right? And then let's fire it to see what is the maximum that we could probably get. 7.3. Okay, so 7.3, that probably means that, like, 7.5 or maybe probably 7.4, because this is not that heavy of a load. So the difference is probably a lot more minute as compared to something of a heavier coil like a 0.5 over here. Okay, so but what is the problem with this? The problem is that, like, this is a 2.3 coil, while this is a 0.5, this is a 0.78, and then this is a 1 ohm coil. What I'm trying to say is that generally we all build coils somewhere within this range, and as far as, like, the 2 ohms and higher coils, this is less likely of something that we would build. So let's come back up to the top camera, and then I'll give my final thoughts about this item. Okay, guys, so here's my final thoughts on the 100-watt box mods. Okay, these days, as we're going higher and higher in wattage, a lot of this stuff needs to kind of be understood like everything else that we have in life, kind of like sound systems and stuff. If you want to comfortably listen to something at like 50 watts, you don't buy something at 50 watts. You buy it at higher and then back it down. Okay, so if you're looking for more power than 50 watts, then a 100-watt box mod item is definitely the item that you should be getting. Okay, you don't get this item because you need more than 100 watts or exactly 100 watts. You need it because you want to do like 60, 70 watts. Okay, so with that said, right, keep in mind of the voltage that you're getting impaired with this device. Okay, so that, like, you understand that, like, even though it says 8.4, you're actually going to get no further than 7 point something. But in my opinion, this thing fires more around like 6.5 to 6.7 at most. Why? Because we have to, evaluate these things realistically based on the type of coils that we're most likely to build. How many of you guys out there are building 2.3 coils? A lot less likely than the rest of you guys who are building between the half ohm to the full ohm, right? So as long as you're between like 1 ohm to 0.5, a little bit lower or something like that, there's no way this thing is actually going to give you, more than like 6.5 to 6.7. So that's something to really, really consider. Other than that, the way that this thing looks and how clean it is, the venting at the bottom, like the safety features, the circuit protection inside or whatever, I would still definitely recommend this item for people who are looking for I want to vape somewhere around like 55, 60 watts, and I'm okay with giving it like that 6 volt plus ish jolt instead of like the 8.4 where it promises it, but you're not actually getting it. Okay, so that's definitely something that you think of. So until next time, guys, question everything, do your homework, and take care.